The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, welcome everybody to the Yaron Brook Show on this Sunday night. I hope you had a fantastic weekend and are ready for the week, ready for another week. These weeks are weird. I'm not sure any of you are going to, no sound, really? No sound? Can you guys hear me? 1, 2, 3. Stephanie says she can't hear anything. How about you? Anybody can hear me? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, I think I'm okay. I don't know why there wouldn't be sound. All right. Anyway, I don't know if you guys go to work, and I don't know if you stay home. I don't know what happens when the week starts. But anyway, I hope you have a great week ahead of you. All right. I had a good weekend. Yeah, did a little driving around the island, saw a little bit of part of Puerto Rico I haven't seen before, so it was really nice. Beautiful day. Sun was out. Wasn't too humid. Wasn't too blazingly hot, but not nutty hot. And it was really a gorgeous day after the tropical storm that went through here. Everything cleared up, and we just got these beautiful Saturday and Sunday. Gorgeous. All right, so I wanted to give you a quick update on TikTok, that wonderful Chinese social network that is in the United States. Subsidiary of it is in the United States. Trump has said he would ban it, so he hasn't banned it yet. Yesterday he said he would sign an executive order yesterday, and he didn't, so it hasn't been banned yet. Just one more little exaggeration. We'll call it an exaggeration of Trump's. But today, his people went out there and were very clear that it's coming. I'm sure they're trying to figure out the legalese of how to do it exactly, because it's not simple. You know, the American system of government is actually not built to ban specific companies, to exclude specific services from the American people. That's not how the system was built. It's not what freedom is about. It's not how our system of government is supposed to function. But, under Donald Trump it is, and in the future it will be. So they're trying to figure out the legal shenanigans necessary to shut down one particular company called TikTok, and I'm sure they'll do it. One of the things that happened this weekend is it turns out that everybody hates TikTok, that this is a bipartisan issue. Because the Democrats don't want to feel like they're left behind on China. Biden has been speaking out tough on China. Schumer today said that he has always hated TikTok and thought TikTok should be banned and it's a national security threat. And basically everybody's rallying around the flag and the new Cold War with China and the new antagonism towards anything Chinese. This is now a bipartisan issue. And as I've said many, many times, whenever the Democrats and Republicans agree on anything, I get scared. Because it means that whatever that thing is, it's some status thing that increases the role of government, it means more power to the politicians, the bureaucrats, and the state. And it's not good. In this case, Democrats and Republicans think it's a good idea to ban TikTok. I think Microsoft should just buy them and turn it into an American company. How come that is not even on the table for these politicians? It just shows you the true nature of this administration and the Democrats on the other side. Anyway, so that's the update on TikTok. I'll keep you updated as things progress. It would be still nice, I think, and more consistent with the cause of freedom, and for those of you who actually use TikTok, more consistent with your consumer preferences, if Microsoft just bought them and turned them into an American company abiding by privacy laws that exist in the United States of America. Although as a subsidiary, an American subsidiary of TikTok, USA is supposed to abide by those too. And if it hasn't, and I said this yesterday, if it hasn't, take them to court. Why is the President of the United States getting involved? Sorry, but this is ludicrous and insane and all about politics, elections, and looking tough on China, and has nothing to do with reality, with America first, with what's good for America and the American system of government. But because we do have a court system, you know. We do have a Justice Department. We do have laws that protect Americans. And if any company, Chinese, Japanese, German, Russian, Saudi, or American, violates the rights of Americans, we do have processes by which you go after those companies. You sue them in court, you prosecute them, you destroy them. This idea of a president of the United States writing an executive order to ban one company, that is insanity. And that is, it's the tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock towards authoritarianism. Which brings me to the main topic I want to talk about today. And that is, what are the lessons have we learned? What lessons have we learned from coronavirus politically, from a political perspective? What are the conclusions that might have long-term impacts on us politically that we will take away from COVID-19? That's what I want to talk about. We'll talk a little bit about Jeffrey Epstein. You know, if you remember when the Jeffrey Epstein story, when he was arrested, what is it, over a year ago now, I did a couple of shows on that. Some of the most watched shows I've ever done were the Jeffrey Epstein shows. And it's an issue that I care quite a bit about. I think it's just such a travesty and so disgusting. So we'll talk about that, and then finally we'll talk about this Twitter storm, where a mathematics PhD, statistics PhD, tweeted something about 2 + 2 = 5. I'll read you the tweet, and we'll discuss some of the outflow from that. So we've got a full plate today. Of course, as we go through it, please don't forget to like the show. Like it before you like it now, so you don't forget later on, under the assumption you're going to like it. Of course, if you want to really represent your point of view, then maybe you should wait. But maybe just be safe. Just like it now. Don't forget to share this show, or you know, it might be more convenient to share some of the shorts. Share some of the short shows, because those the ones that Christian creates for me, those are more topical and maybe easier for people to consume, new people to consume, so maybe share those. And then, of course, those of you who want to support the show, yesterday we had this unbelievable super chat support evening. I think we netted over $1,000. We'll see. I still haven't got the official YouTube numbers, but it was terrific. Simon from Iceland stepped in and really showed his support for the show. So you can do that through Super Chat by asking a question. As I've said before, Super Chats that have associated with them $20 or more will get priority, and the higher the amount, the greater the priority they will get. So, go for it, and hopefully we'll have another good night tonight. Although I doubt we'll have as good of a night as yesterday, but we can always try, right? And then, of course, the preferred way of supporting the show is by going to yaronbrookshow.com/support, or Patreon, or Subscribestar, and on those you can subscribe monthly, which is my preferred methodology. One more point of house cleaning before we get to the show itself, so I apologize. But a couple of days ago, actually on July 30th, I did a show, and we got some really generous Super Chat contributions, and YouTube is not showing them. So YouTube is not recognizing them. They claim that they never happened. So I'm going to name 3 people, Angel's Philosophy, Alex Dino, and Chad Mills. If the 3 of you have receipts for the Super Chats that you made last Thursday, July 30th, If you can take a photograph of that and email it to me at yaronbrookshow.com, that would be fantastic if you're listening to the show or will be listening to the show afterwards. Chad Mills, Angel's Philosophy, and Alex Dino, if you could forward those to me, that'd be great, because if they charged your card, it's not going to be YouTube is pocketing the money right now, so let's get them to fix the problem. If for some reason you don't have them, no problem. Then I guess it never went through for some technical glitch on their side, so it was never charged. All right, yeah, because that was a lot of money that day, and YouTube is giving me like $50 instead of like 300 and something, so weird. But anyway, we'll try to fix that, and let us start with the lessons learned from COVID. You know, there's a lot of lessons we can learn from COVID, because COVID is a massive failure. That is, the government's response to COVID is a massive failure. Right? Whether at the federal level, at the state level, you look around the world, and almost every country in the world has done a better job than the United States of America. And so you expect that people will look back at COVID and say, what can we learn from this? What did we do wrong? What do we need to do differently next time? Or how do we structure government? How do we structure our health system? How do we structure federalism? How do we structure all this to make sure that next time we do a better job? And there's a real importance here that the right lessons are learned. I mean, the lessons I learned, the lessons I think are fairly obvious, is that much of what the government tried to do, it shouldn't be doing to begin with. The lesson learned should be let private sector do testing. Let private sector design tests. Reduce the power of the FDA. Allow for more freedom. Allow for more freedom to try different tests, different testing methodologies, different testing applications. Maybe let insurance companies take a leading role in figuring out how to deal at the healthcare level with these kind of issues. In other words, my conclusion for this is that the government should have relied far more on the private sector, stayed out of the way, and indeed emboldened the private sector to do a lot more. And that the government, at most, should have had a coordinating function and should have involved itself in the things that only government can do, like tracing, and even there, you could probably use the private sector quite a bit, but isolating. You know, the mandating of people who are actually infected to stay home and not go out. That's basically it. That everything else could have been handled more effectively, more efficiently by private sector guided by science. And that the last thing in the world you want to do during a pandemic is politicize it. Is it turning into politics rather than science, enterprise, solutions, plans? If you look at the South Korea model, at least in South Korea, the first thing the South Korean government was got together private companies to develop tests. Now, they didn't go all the way with that. They didn't go as far as I would go with that. But at least they trusted their private industry to develop the right kind of tests. The Trump administration said, no, we can do it ourselves. The FDA, the CDC tried to develop the test. And we won't use any foreign tests, even though they were working all over the world. We have to develop a made in America test. And that set us back 6 weeks and probably led to the deaths of tens of thousands of people. So lesson learned, we should privatize much of the response. Another lesson is, that I would draw, is we need to think in advance about the rules and laws that govern pandemics. Do we allow governors to, at their own discretion, lock down citizens for weeks at a time with no standards, with no guidance, with no end run, and leave it completely discretion of politicians to do this? Is their role to have definitive laws that guide what the government can and cannot do during a pandemic? So you would think if we had a proper government, that they would go in now and figure out, okay, for the next time, here's the kind of framework for the laws that we should have. And Anka Gata has written a brilliant essay. You can find it on the Ayn Rand Institute's website about what those laws would look like. What would be the structure? And how a government should behave during a pandemic. And lockdowns, localized lockdowns, finite lockdowns should be a last resort. Overarching lockdowns, lockdowns that affect millions of people, lockdowns that don't have an end date, lockdowns that are just consequence of panic, should never be allowed. So, but these things need to be thought out in advance. We need real laws to put them together. And the approach should be the approach of freedom, an approach that's pro-liberty, an approach that's guided by individualism and a respect for individual rights, an approach that's guided by what is essential for individual Americans to preserve their liberty, to preserve their rights. Now, we all know that none of that is going to happen. Well, think about healthcare. Think about the fact that hospitals were shown to be constrained in the beds that they have, and the ICU capacity and other things. And much of that constraint is from regulations, from the fact that they need to get permission to increase and to grow their capacity. The fact that we rely way too much on a centralized federal bureaucracy to provide PPE in emergencies. I mean, on and on and on you go. The problems here are centralization, government, and regulations. And you would think the one solution for this would be we want more healthcare, better healthcare that's privatized. That is, we want privatized healthcare. We want more freedom in healthcare. We want more hospitals to be freer to make decisions for themselves about capacity, about emergencies, about stocking up for emergencies, about preparing for emergencies. Now, for that, ultimately, you would have to de-link hospitals from being paid primarily by Medicare and Medicaid, because those institutions squeeze all the margins out of hospitals and make them unprofitable, and therefore hospitals cannot plan because they're so barely profitable that it's difficult for them to plan, and then they load all the profit onto private insurance companies. So those of us in private insurance companies are subsidizing everything else, and you could go on and on and on and on about the evils of the current system. And the solution for all of those problems is more freedom in healthcare, more privatization, both in terms of hospitals, doctors, and ultimately, importantly, in terms of insurance companies. We need more business. We need more freedom in pharma, not less freedom in pharma. More freedom in hospitals, not less freedom in hospitals. More freedom in insurance, not less freedom in insurance. More freedom in every aspect of the healthcare business. But is that the lesson that's going to be learned from COVID? No. See, here's what I think the lessons are going to be. Here's what I think the lessons are going to be. Well, we'll look at countries that are being relatively successful in dealing with the COVID problem. China comes to mind. China's solution to COVID was to shut down whole cities, to literally shut them down, not allow people out of their homes, assign them days in which they could go to grocery stores, watch them, monitor them, track, trace everything that they did, whether they had the disease or not. And indeed, if you believe the numbers, and it's hard to know what the numbers actually are, but given that it was the epicenter, the beginning and where it all started, the deaths in China seem to be pretty low because using this authoritarian mechanism, they eradicated the virus relative to the United States quickly. We have many more deaths, many more cases, and it's not, and there's no end in sight. This will continue until there's a vaccine. And then if you look at France, which has done a better job, if you measure better job by deaths and caseload than the United States, what does France have? Well, again, it did a shutdown much more intense than anything we did in the United States, as did Italy. And France has a world-renowned socialized healthcare system. And already people are saying, what saved France is everything was centralized. The data was centralized. The decision-making was centralized. The healthcare provision was centralized. Everything was centralized. And what we need in the United States is more centralization. Testing was centralized. Results were centralized. What we need in the United States is socialized healthcare. And country by country that you go around the world, because free governments have failed so badly, primarily the United States, the victim of their failure will be freedom. The victim of their failure will not be they failed because they have a mixed economy and they're incompetent and the mixed economy blew up. People will look at mixed economies that turned authoritarian, that are more authoritarian than America, and say, but look, those mixed economies did fine. And this is why Ayn Rand's point of the mixed economy is not stable. Mixed economy cannot survive. Long term, you either move towards freedom or you move towards authoritarianism. Somebody asked, what about Sweden? Well, look at what happened in Sweden. Almost all the conclusions coming out of Sweden that I'm reading, even the conclusion of the chief epidemiologist in Sweden, is they made a mistake. Now, I also think they made mistakes. They made mistakes of not testing enough. They made mistakes of not testing, tracing, and isolating. But Sweden is not viewed as a model. Almost nobody is looking at Sweden and saying, that's the model of how do we behave. That is, leave people free. Give them advice, but leave them free. I wish that was what we will learn as a lesson. That Sweden combined with better government policies, Sweden combined with more testing, tracing, and isolating, Sweden combined with a robust private sector in healthcare and insurance, would have dealt with this problem easily. But that is not the lesson being learned. Again, the lesson being learned is authoritarianism worked. And of course, because people don't think in principle, they don't care about principle. What they're saying is, look, people are dying. Freedom failed. Limited government, like in the United States, failed. And go argue against them that the United States government is not limited. That the United States government actually, in many respects, acted more authoritarian than other governments, at least in terms of testing. That the United States government is particularly incompetent under Trump and under these governors. So just to be clear, my view is the role of governments to protect our rights. If you carry an infectious disease that can kill, and you are potentially violating people's rights, and the government has a role in isolating you. But that's about it. That's about it. Now, in the mixed economy that we live in today, maybe the government has to do more. But that more is always limited by not violating rights, or not violating any more rights than are necessary given that rights are being violated already. But it can never be true that the solution is more authoritarianism, more government, more controls, more oppression, more centralized power, more dictates. But that is not, again, that's the lesson we're going to get out of this. I think socialized medicine is to some extent or another is a done deal in the United States now. I think more authority around drugs, around vaccines. You're seeing with vaccines, and Alex, we'll get to your question in a second. It's a good question. We'll get to vaccines in a minute. But you know, vaccines right now, the government is throwing billions and billions and billions of dollars all over the world, Europe and the United States, the pharmaceutical companies, to invest in vaccines. Hundreds of millions of doses. And they're doubling up because they want to make sure that they invest in all the companies so they're diversified. So if one of them hits the jackpot in terms of getting the best vaccine, the U.S. government is an investor, and therefore the U.S. government gets priority to get the vaccine. Again, let's not rely on markets. Let's not rely on capitalism. Let the government dictate all. Dictate which vaccine we're going to use, dictate when we're going to use it, and dictate ultimately, and this is already people are discussing this, who gets the vaccine. That's a big issue right now. Who's going to get it? Who gets it first? Well, that's all going to be political. It's not going to be economic. You won't be able to buy the vaccine. The vaccine will be handed out by government because the government has bought it. The government has made the investments. And again, what is the conclusion? That most people out there, that the left will encourage and the right will not oppose, but that most people out there will conclude from this. Well, you see, you objectivists, you free market types, to get a vaccine, you have to have government. To deal with a pandemic, you have to have government. To deal with a pandemic, not only do you have to have government, you have to violate rights. You have to tax, you have to spend, and then because you shut down the economy, you have to stimulate the economy. And therefore, you have to have government. And at every level, the conclusion is going to be, see, the pandemic is just proof, and I can see this in debates that I'm going to do in the future. See, the pandemic is just proof that we need more government, not less government. And of course, think of it in terms of the average Joe or Jane or whatever. To them, it's much easier to imagine. It's much easier to see in their imagination how centralized governments can deal with the pandemic, because they can look at China, they can look at France, they can look at other countries, and they can see how it was done. But if I want to argue, let's say if I'm debating a socialist, if I want to argue, no, the market would have done this 1,000 times better. Here's what a rights-respecting government would have done. Here's how you would have handled it. And we would have had no loss of liberty. And we would have handled all this much better. And we would be richer in the process, because our economy would have tumbled a lot less. That's hard to imagine. They've never seen it. And they don't really know what it looks like, because how many people out there actually understand how markets work? And how many people out there respect markets, admire markets, promote markets? And this is one of my big things about the so-called right. Well, not the so-called, the right. Is they don't do markets good. They condemn markets just as much, almost as much as the left. They don't hail the beauty of the marketplace and how it works and how it provides solutions and how it deals with issues and problems and how it solves those problems. No. Indeed, intellectuals on left and right, politicians of left and right, condemn the market. You saw that with big tech. Condemn their greed, condemn the profit motive. and reject the idea that markets could solve problems like the pandemic. So what do you expect from the average person? I don't, there's no way. There's no way that people can stand up to their intellectuals and say, no, How would they even know that there is a market solution to these things unless they listen to this show or they follow me on Twitter? So what we're going to get is significant increase in statism. No matter who wins the election, we will get much more government intervention in healthcare as a consequence of COVID. No matter who wins the election. Indeed, this election is it doesn't matter. What's going on here is inevitable. And unless we get the ideas of freedom, the ideas of markets, the ideas of capitalism, the ideas of individual rights out there, then it's hopeless because the people can't imagine an alternative. The people cannot imagine an alternative. It's only the intellectuals who can provide an alternative. And it's exactly the intellectuals who will not, whether left or right, whether nationalist, conservative, or leftist, or centrists, who can't imagine an alternative and how markets could solve these kind of problems. I don't know what somebody says they don't agree with the scenario I'm portraying. I'm not sure what you disagree with, but the fact is that we are heading towards more authoritarianism, more control of healthcare, more control of people's lives, more tracing. Oh, this is the other thing that the conclusion will come to. Well, we need a better way to trace people. We need a better way to see who people met with. We need a better way to track people during a disease. We need better surveillance tools. Those Chinese have it down. Those Chinese know what they're doing. I did a show a while ago. I think the title was We're All China Now. I think it was Rubio's speech about industrial planning and how, we need to control our economy much more, like the Chinese. I think China's winning. I think the Chinese model of authoritarian government, a fascist government that allows semblance of semblance of private property, semblance of free markets, some incentive to innovate. Oh, but that's what I said. I said government is the solution, is never the answer. It's always the problem. It's exactly what I've said, right? It's not an issue of IQ. Give me a break. People always want to boil it down to simple solutions. People are too stupid to understand. No, people can understand if somebody was actually articulating the message. How do you know people are too stupid if they've never heard the message? But my point is, China is winning. People are willing today to trade safety for freedom. People are willing today to trade the knowable for freedom. Why take risk? Why have an uncertain future? It reminds me of this engineer in China in 2004 when I asked him if he's upset that he couldn't vote, that he didn't have any political freedom. He said, look, as long as the economy grows every year and my quality of life and standard of living goes up every year, voting is not important to me. Well, I think that's true in the U.S. today. As long as I don't get COVID, as long as you can secure me a minimum wage, as long as maybe we have a universal basic income, as long as you give me the things that I need, as long as you provide me with my health care, Who cares about political freedom, free speech, all these abstractions? What have they ever done for me? And that will not be the fault of the common man. That will not be the fault of the so-called people who don't have a high enough IQ, because that's BS. It'll be the fault of our politicians. It'll be the fault of our intellectuals. It'll be the fault of our philosophers, our thinkers, and it'll be your fault to the extent that you don't do what you need to do to give these ideas a hearing. It'll be the fault of anybody who stays silent in front of the growing authoritarianism in this country. It'll be the fault of anybody who does not speak up and yell from the top of the mountains. Now, what is this deal with shoes? For the shoe fund, for the shoe, what is, I don't get it. I'm missing something. I've missed something in the chat. There's a whole fundraising campaign going on. Happy to support Yaron Brook's shoe. I don't get it. What did I say that has prompted a fund to provide me with? I am barefoot. I can't show you, I guess, because my feet are way down there. But yes, I am barefoot. But if you buy me shoes, I'm not going to wear shoes. Why would I wear shoes? Was it a typo? Oh, it comes out of a typo. I thought it had to do with the fact that I said in one of the previous shows that I do these shows barefoot in shorts, right? And that I only wear shoes once a week when I go to this one restaurant that requires shoes. Otherwise, I wear sandals. But okay, I guess it was just a typo for the show, not the shoe. All right, got it. Sorry. My imagination went in all kinds of directions, obviously. All right, but we raised some money for the shoes. That's good. And these are pretty cheap shoes, so we're probably looking at flip-flops, right? If you want me to buy real shoes, you're going to have to put up more money than what you put up so far. The Shoes of Liberty, I like that. Shoes of Liberty, $1,000 a piece. That's what's going to be required here if you want real shoes, right? $1.99. You know, flip-flops. You guys are not serious. This is how freedom decays and how we lose our freedoms and how we go silently into the night because you guys will not put enough money into the shoe fund. So I am, unfortunately, quite pessimistic. I am pessimistic about the ability of this country to recover, not from the pandemic. I mean, that's going to be tough enough. Not even from Trump, not from, the bad response to the pandemic. All of this is, I think, is doable. The thing that really scares me about the inability of this country to recover from is the wrong conclusions people are going to come from the pandemic. Right? It's the fact that freedom is going to be the loser. Much scarier. Much, much, much scarier than COVID. Much scarier than Donald Trump is the loss of freedom that we are going to suffer because of the wrong conclusions people come to as a consequence of this pandemic. And it's something to be on the lookout for. It's something to fight against. It's something to be aware of. It's something not to stay silent about. We must keep speaking. Speaking out against statism, about any kind of statist conclusions that people come to as a result of this pandemic. I've got a serious topic here, and you guys are making me laugh. So we've got a $25 bid now on towards the shoes. I think we're now up to, I saw a 10 there that's 35 and a bunch of $2. We probably got about $45. I mean, you have no idea how much my shoes cost. I wear much more expensive shoes than that. And Crocs are not, I don't wear Crocs. So either it has to be really, really nice sandals, about $100, or really nice leather shoes, much more than $100. So it's just not my shoe. The shoes I actually wear for business and stuff, $350, $400. Those are the shoes. Sandals about $100. All right, now we've set now everybody knows the kind of shoes. There we go, $100. Who knew that shoes would become a fundraising tactic? Oh, we're on our way to buying high-end Italian shoes here. This is pretty cool, and we brought some humor into the show, right? We are the order of the gourd. We are the order of the shoe. This is from Monty Python, of course. Thank you, Tom, for the Monty Python reference. It's always good. It is a Sunday. We should have a little bit of humor here before we get to the ugly next topic. All right, I'm going to try to ignore the fundraising going on in the chat for shoes. I'll thank you for all of you for your contributions. Let's just say this all goes to the cause of freedom, and we'll avoid shoe jokes right now. Here's a question, and it's a great question because this is actually a topic I wanted to talk about today. Luke, thank you. This is great. This is shoes from Portland and Poland. Enjoy, love the show and shoes. So I assume you live in Portland from Poland. We've got another $20 for Oh My God Puppies. He's going from a Fisto brand, a nice and practical, but get the ones made in Portugal. All right, I was going to get ones made in Portland or Poland. All right, we're now getting to real shoe money, so this is good. I am not no Speedos here. All right, this is the question, and there was a real money associated with this. COVID vaccine phase 3 is currently underway, but it was also not conclusive until complete. Do you think people should have access to vaccine if they want to take the shot without phase 3 being completed? Yes, yes, yes. So one of the things phase 2 does is phase 2 of any drug is a phase that is focused on side effects and risk, danger. A drug in phase 3 is primarily focused on efficacy. Does it really work? And on a larger sample, are there side effects? But phase 2 is supposed to rule out really, really, really bad outcomes. So taking this drug and really suffering a bad outcome. So we now have, I don't know, at least half a dozen different drugs, different vaccines that have passed phase 2 trials. I think there are 2 in China, there are at least 2 in Europe, and now there are 2 in the United States. There are probably another 6 that are going to come out in the next few months. So you got about 12, somewhere between 6 to 10 to 12 vaccines that have passed phase 2 and therefore are safe. And one of the reasons we know they're safe is they're literally going to give these vaccines in the United States to 30,000 people. If they thought these were dangerous, they wouldn't be giving it to 30,000 people. They might not work as advertised. But what's the downside? Why not, instead of giving them to 30,000 people, give them to 30 million people? Why not start giving the vaccines now? I don't believe in mandated vaccines. Let people know that these are not proven, that there's a risk. Have them sign disclosures. Provide all the information, all the education that you need so that people can make an educated, well-informed assessment of whether they want to take the vaccine. And let people volunteer. I would certainly volunteer to have the vaccine, particularly if they allowed me then to travel. And I would encourage other people to take the vaccine because it would increase what's called herd immunity. And if we could get 30, 50, 100 million Americans to take these vaccines, this crisis would be over. And instead of waiting 3, 6, 9 months to have definitive answers about which one works the best, why don't we give them all out, track people, and see on a much larger scale which one works the best? And those people who got the lousy vaccine, we give them the good vaccine once we know which one's better. So this is exactly an example of how in a marketplace, that's how it would work. In a marketplace, the government wouldn't centralize all this. It wouldn't run all this. We wouldn't be this. You see, we live in a culture that's motivated by fear. We live in a culture that's motivated by, I'm talking about, somebody says they don't know what I'm talking about, right? They're talking about, I'm talking about vaccines and giving them out for free, right? And not giving them out for free, giving them out now rather than waiting until phase 3 tests are done. How much do my famous expensive dinners cost? Well, let me finish the vaccines. So, my point is, why not let individuals make a risk assessment for themselves? This is the pro-freedom, pro-liberty solution. Why, oh why, would you let the FDA, the centralized bureaucracy, the government, the state, determine for you when you should take a vaccine? I would take it tomorrow. The Moderna vaccine, the Oxford vaccine, there are a number of vaccines that have already been proved to be safe in human beings. And if I could travel, if I could be rid of this stupid COVID thing, and if we could give it to enough people, if enough people would be willing to take it, yes, there's a risk, but life is a risk. Life is risky. So, and now what would happen in a free market? In a free market, drug companies would be free to offer it up to the highest bidder, offer it up to the population, to sell it to insurance companies. They would advertise the risks in advance. They would have people sign liability forms, sign away the liabilities. And we would today be beyond the problem. In Russia, they're planning to start vaccinating people in October. Now, Russia's an authoritarian state, and Russia's going to force this vaccine on people. But they can do it in October. Why can't we? We could do it even earlier. We could do it right now. Right now, we could start. All right, one more vaccine question, and then we'll take some of these others. Gates Foundation is building 7 factories for different COVID-19 vaccines. Knowing that other testing, they may close some of them and write them off. Yes. Aggressive parallelization of project schedule. I mean, it's amazing. That's private sector. And this is the foundation, so this is not done for profit. This is exactly what would happen under capitalism. See, people don't realize that under capitalism, wealthy individuals would do lots of things not for profit, particularly at a time of crisis. They would step up in a way that government cannot because it doesn't have the sense, the brains, the long-term planning to do so. And it doesn't have the intelligence to do so. Large-scale wealth creators would step up to close whatever gaps happen to exist in the marketplace, solve whatever problems the marketplace, for whatever reason, is not solved, and deal with them. Philanthropy is one of them. And philanthropy doesn't just mean giving money to poor people. Philanthropy could mean building vaccine plants that some of them you're going to have to write off, but you want to be ready to be able to produce the vaccine when it's needed and not make any money off of it. It could mean buying 100 million vaccines for poor people who can't afford it. Although in a free market, everybody would be insured, or almost everybody would be insured, and the insurance companies would be paying for these things. But people ignore the fact that our very wealthy entrepreneurs don't just invest in their own companies to make more and more money. Look at Bezos. Look at Elon Musk. They've actually created businesses to fly to Mars. They're investing in call it their hobbies. But their hobbies are going to benefit all of us if they work. All right, so you got to fight for freedom even in the face of COVID. Don't let up for 1 second, because we are entering the next, I predict the next 5 years are going to be a period of intense push from both left and right to increase the role of the state, increase the role of government in every aspect of our lives, including monitoring our behavior, monitoring our actions. We are much more likely to move to becoming more like China than it looks like than China is to move towards us. So it's much more likely we become like China. There's actually, I think, a bigger chance. Here's a controversial statement. I think there's a bigger chance that China becomes freer than there is that we become freer. That is, the likelihood of the outcome of COVID is that we in the United States move towards China. I don't know what will happen to China, but I think they are more likely to move towards us than us to resist statism. It's scary times, people. You gotta wake up and you gotta realize how bad things are. Left and right. It's not just woke culture. It's not just a focus on the little things, but the big picture is we're heading towards a statist world. Ian says Hong Kong needs to take over China. I said that when the handover happened from the UK to China, and for a long time I thought that was happening. For a long time I thought Hong Kong was taking over China. I think I changed my mind about that about 2 years ago when Xi, when started realizing the true nature of this new authoritarian heading China, Xi, who is dead set on turning China more and more and more authoritarian. But for a long time, through the 90s and through the 2000s, until about 2009 probably, Hong Kong was taking over China. And I think it's the last 8 or 9 years, really the last 2 to 5 years, where China has reasserted its authoritarianism and is basically now crushing Hong Kong. Crushing Hong Kong, unfortunately, sadly. All right, Derek asks, how much do your famously expensive dinners cost? It depends. So it depends where. You know, in the U.S., well, it depends, right? So they could go from $200 a person to $500 a person without expensive alcohol. So that's like with a glass of wine. Paris is very expensive. 3-star Michelin star restaurants are very expensive in Paris. Less expensive in the U.S. So anywhere between, for two, $500 to $1,000 easily. Good food is expensive. Now, the nice thing about Puerto Rico is it's really hard to spend more than $150 for two people, $200 on a fantastic meal with wine. I hate cooking. I like other people cooking for me. That's what I like. I like world-class, best ever people cooking for me. I like the best in the world to cook for me. I love really, really, really world-class restaurants. It's one of my hobbies. Okay. Let's see, 2 more Super Chat questions, then we'll get to Jeffrey Epstein. Why won't socialists like Richard Wolff advocate for I don't think you mean a minarchy. I don't know, to include the coexistence of worker co-ops coupled with laissez-faire capitalism? Well, because it's not what they believe. It's not like they want people who want to live in a commune to work in a commune. It's not like they want workers who want to be in a co-op to work in a co-op. They want to coerce everybody to work under their terms. They believe in a workers' utopia. They believe in coercion. They believe in force. They believe they know the right way in which people should live, and nobody should be a worker in a factory owned by a capitalist. Even if they volunteer to do it, the only reason they volunteer to do it is because they don't know any better. And since they won't know any better, you have to force them. The whole point of socialism is coercion. The whole point of socialism is force. The whole point of socialism is control. The whole point of socialism is the negation of the individual and individual choice. The whole point of socialism is to collectivize, to coerce, and to control. And they don't want to compete, partially because they know co-ops would never survive under laissez-faire capitalism. Laissez-faire capitalism would be far superior to anything co-ops did. That's why there's so few co-ops today. Now, I don't know what you mean by minarchy. I don't know what minarchy means. I'm not a minarchist. Minimal government. Minarchy sounds like we really want to be anarchists, but okay, we will take a minimal government. No, I want a limited government, limited to the protection of individual rights. Very clear definition, because it's important. I'm not a minarchist. I'm a limited government where government protects individual rights. It's not an issue of size, it's an issue of scope. And the scope of government is to protect individual rights. And then what you want is a government that has lots of protections within so that it doesn't violate individual rights. Minarchism is an anti-concept. I think that's right. But the point is, Richard Wolff doesn't want it because it's not what he wants. It's not that Richard Wolff wants co-ops. Richard Wolff wants control. He wants to dictate. He wants to be an authority. He wants us all to be the same. All right, this wake-up sheeple in this country can't even spell freedom. They don't even know what it is. Unfortunately, I think that is true. And getting worse, and getting worse. Left and right. Jeffrey Epstein. I think everybody knows who Jeffrey Epstein is. Jeffrey Epstein is a centimillionaire who died in prison, supposedly from suicide, about a year ago, after being arrested as a pedophile and basically somebody who ran a ring, a pedophilia ring. Young girls, anywhere from age 14 to 17, sexually harassed, some cases raped, and then prostituted out to a variety of his friends and his associates. There are those who randomly claim he worked for the Mossad. Proof? Evidence? No, but nobody needs proof or evidence when you listen to Alex Jones. Alex Jones said this guy worked for the Mossad, therefore he must have worked for the Mossad. Reality is much messier than conspiracy theories would like us to have. It's much more corrupt. It's much more disgusting. It's much uglier than conspiracy theories would actually have us have it. Jeffrey Epstein, it looks like, conned Wexler, who is a billionaire, out of a lot of money. Probably, I don't want to say anything about Wexler that might get me into trouble, but I wouldn't be surprised if Wexler was involved in some of the sex stuff that was going on. He was an older man. He was, probably bored and running Victoria's Secrets, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jeffrey Epstein showed him how to have a good time, and as a consequence, landed with a lot of money. He was not a matchmaker. He was a child molester. And he had it among his friends, women who helped him. And Giselle Maxwell is the primary one, his madame, who brought him young girls and who helped him molest them and in some cases rape them, who helped pimp them out to people. And the thing about Epstein that makes this more than just, okay, well, there are bad people out there. We all know that. He's a criminal. He got his due. He died in jail, as it should be. I wish he'd gone to trial. and died slowly. I think he got off too easy. But the thing that makes this scandal, this crime, truly disgusting, on a different plane, did Jeffrey really have sex with him? I need some evidence. Well, there are dozens of witnesses that say yes. And we're talking about young girls. We're talking about young girls that he put in positions where he raped, sexually molested them. Yes. Now, we'll see. Tons of evidence are going to come out with the trial of Giselle and with the many civil lawsuits. And one of the reasons this is back in the news is that one of the civil lawsuits, the judge has just basically unlocked all the files, all the cross-examinations, all the discovery, what's called discovery in the law, that surrounds this, all the files, all of the accuser's testimony is now out there. And you can go read it. Now, you might find the accuser's unreliable. You might claim she's making it stuff. That's what Alan Dershowitz is saying, because he is accused of having sex with one of them. But, so he's claiming, of course, she's lying. Well, what else would he claim? So we will see. There's going to be a court. There's going to be a day in court. She'll either plead guilty and cooperate and spill the beans to prosecutors, or she will actually go to court and we'll see a cross-examination, or she will die mysteriously in jail. And her name is Ghislaine, not Giselle. Sorry, Ghislaine. But these are, so yes, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine were disgusting people. So what? Why make a big deal out of this? The reason this is newsworthy is not just what they did. It's who their friends were. I mean, they're friends with the high society of New York. Many of the wealthy, many of the well-connected, many politicians, many high, placed lawyers, even scientists from MIT. The elites of this country, many of them were friends of Jeffrey Epstein, even after he was prosecuted for soliciting a child for sex in Florida. They continue to be his friends. Of course, royalty, Prince Andrew from the UK. They flew in a plane known as the Lolita Express. Now, this isn't some secret. It was called the Lolita Express. Not openly, obviously, but people knew. Jeffrey Epstein's island in the U.S. Virgin Islands was called Pedophile Island by the locals. Like, everybody knew what was going on. And of course, the reason it's in the news now is because part of what was revealed when they opened up these documents from the civil case is that the woman who's accusing Jeffrey Epstein of molesting her, it also tells a story about other people who are on this pedophile island. And one of those were Bill Clinton, with two young women from New York. Now, of course, he's denied it. But there are other reports. I think Gawker had reported that he had been, that Clinton had been on the Lolita Express, on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane, something like 12 or 14 times have traveled around. So, this is something that affects many people. And what's truly shocking is that very few people seem to care. Well, Frank knows that Alan Dershowitz is innocent. I guess Frank knows. He has insight into Alan Dershowitz's life and insight into all of this. How do we know Alan Dershowitz is innocent? How do we know any of these guys are innocent? Maybe they're innocent. I don't know. But I guess innocent until proven guilty. But there's certainly evidence to suggest that he's not. Evidence is not conclusive. But at least some people are accusing him. Why Alan Dershowitz? Well, why would they accuse Alan? Well, maybe because he defended Jeffrey Epstein and some of these women want to get back at him. Maybe. Maybe. But the point is that this is affecting the elite of New York society and many within American society. And the question is, where are the feminists? Where is the Me Too movement? Where are all the people who jump up when a celebrity makes an accusation against somebody or against a Supreme Court judge? Why are these women not to be believed about Bill Clinton and Alan Dershowitz? But the woman who accused Kavanaugh is to be believed. Where are all the women who started a movement called Me Too? This is worse than Me Too. This is not just have sex with me to get a promotion, and the woman, in most cases, can walk out. This is taking 14-year-old girls and molesting them. You'd think that women in this country, that the Me Too movement in this country, that the left in this country, and the right, where are the conservatives, where are the evangelicals? Where is the outrage that there is silence from these people? Why did it take a year to arrest Ghislaine Maxwell? Why is Prince Andrew not being required? Or why haven't we formally asked for him to be interviewed by the FBI and force the hand of the British government one way or the other? Why haven't all these foo-foo people, and there are dozens and dozens of them, we've got their names and their photographs with Jeffrey Epstein at parties and all these places, including, by the way, Donald Trump, who in some magazine said, yeah, that Jeffrey Epstein is a cool guy, and he's always got these very, very young girls around him, as if it's just fun. I think 14 is too young. Stephanie Stowe's 16 for a 40-year-old man. And these typically were women who were picked up in poor neighborhoods. I mean, not women, sorry, girls. Young girls picked up in poor neighborhoods. Somebody said it's the parents' fault, who might not have active parents. And these girls were bringing money home. But these are young girls. This is what we have a government to protect children. And as long as we have an age of consent, and it's one thing if two teenagers are having sex, who cares? But when older men exploit young girls, the state has an issue. The state needs to protect them. So, it's shocking that there is no real uproar, that nobody is held to account, that the foo-foo crowd in New York just goes about their business without fearing. Well, maybe now they're fearing. I hope they're fearing. I hope they're really, really nervous. I really hope the best outcome I think possible of this is that Ghislaine cuts a deal with the government, gets, 10 years in jail or something, or 5 years in jail, or whatever, and then spills the beans on all of them, and then writes a book. Because these people should, if they slept with young girls, should go to jail, and they should be shamed if they did. And if they associated and continued to associate with Jeffrey Epstein, knowing what he was doing. I mean, he had 3 homes in New York, an island in the Virgin Islands, and a whole ranch out in New Mexico where this activity was going on. Hundreds of people must have known. According to the testimonies, orgies were happening on a regular basis, again, with young girls. Andrew asked, if Epstein was attracted to teenagers, why wouldn't he just recruit 18-year-olds who look young? Why risk having sex with minors? Because that's the thrill of the game. Now, I don't know that, but that's what I would guess. It gets boring just to sleep with random 18-year-olds. Part of the thrill is that it's wrong. Part of the thrill is that it's illegal. Part of the thrill is the corrupting influence you're having on these young women. The fact that you're destroying their lives. Right. I think when it comes to sex with older men who are prostituting them, and I'm not sure if 16 is too young. I mean, it depends on the girl, of course, but the moral condemnation should still be there. And I think the legal condemnation too. And certainly at 14. Again, if a 16-year-old girl sleeps with a 21-year-old because they're dating or something, who cares? But all the evidence suggests that he not only seduced them with money or paid them, but that he often molested them and raped them. A number of testimonies of girls being molested by him, of him touching them, in circumstances where it wasn't, where it wasn't very easy for them to escape or to say no. Don't give this guy a pass. He was a sick human being who used girls and who prostituted them to other sick men. And they're underage. And yeah, sure, there are plenty of 16-year-olds who are adults, who are mature, but even they should not be sexually harassed. Even they should not be molested. And certainly even they should not be raped. But the whole thing is twisted and disgusting. And the fact that the Me Too movement is not aggressively demanding that the people associated with this be prosecuted is more, it's not just hypocrisy, it's sheer evil and ugliness. They only get excited when it's an actress. And an actress who could have said no and walked out in many cases, not to justify the guy. But in many cases, the Me Too involved women who could have just slapped the guy in the face and walked out. This is not the case. And mature women, older women. These are young women, in some cases children. And I think it's despicable that there's not a bigger deal made of this. And, that Bill Clinton is still viewed as a hero. And with Bill Clinton, you could say, well, there's just rumors, but we know Bill Clinton. Would anybody be surprised if it turned out to be true? Nobody. Even his fans wouldn't be surprised. And yet they're still his fans. Nobody cares. All right. Somebody says, do you know Yaron Brook? No, I don't. Also, I think you underestimate the power of the wacky left. I don't underestimate the power of the wacky left. Bernie Sanders only lost the primary because of DNC shenanigans. That's not true. Bernie Sanders lost the primary maybe to Hillary last time in 2016 because of shenanigans. And even then, I think she still would have squeezed out a victory. But this time, Bernie Sanders was roundly defeated, easily defeated, by Joe Biden, primarily in South Carolina on a Super Tuesday. It wasn't even close. So Bernie was crushed this time. Oh, Anwad was Sacha Baron Cohen. Yeah, I know Sacha Baron Cohen. He just did this miniseries called Spy, which is excellent. I encourage everybody to watch Spy. I can't remember if it's on Netflix or on Prime, but it's excellent, and he's an excellent actor, it turns out. I'm not a huge fan of his comedy, but here he plays a serious role of a spy, and he's brilliant. He truly is brilliant. So I don't underestimate the power of the wacky left. I just don't think they could rule. Even if Bernie won, he couldn't rule. He couldn't get anything done. America is not a country of the wacky left. And I hate the word wacky left, of the left. Of the extreme left. America is not an extreme left country. America would not be ruled from the extreme left. America is basically a right of center country. And it will not fall to this commies or the socialists. It'll fall, in my view, I might be wrong, to the authoritarian right. Who's Putin? What's the Putin question? I don't know what the Putin question is. Is there a Putin question? I lost that question, Derek, so I don't know what it is. So I fear the left. The left is very dangerous and very, very horrible because the left will incite to make the right worse than it otherwise would be. I don't know what Putin is, so I can't answer the question. Plus, it was a $2 question, so $2 doesn't get, and a $2 Canadian doesn't get much attention, right? Putin is Canadian gravy. It sounds awful. Like Canadian food, other than in Quebec, sounds awful. Like Quebec has French influence there. They have decent food, but Canadian food. How can you have Canadian food? Right? What's that? British food? Like English food? Yuck. All right. Frank seems to know a lot about Epstein's parties. I don't know where from. Eyes Wide Shut did not have young 14-year-old girls as part of the parties. So I don't think the Epstein parties were like Eyes Wide Shut in that they didn't involve underage girls. All right. We're out of Super Chat questions, and I had one more topic, which is 2 + 2 = 5. You didn't know this. Well, a mathematician, his name is Kareem Carr. He is a statistics PhD student, statistics PhD student at Harvard, not at any, BS school. Data science, science communication, and nerdy jokes, MSc math, MA stats. So very, very, very well-educated guy in math and statistics. Posted this on Twitter. I don't know who needs to hear this, but if someone says 2 + 2 = 5, the correct response is, what are your definitions and axioms? Not a rant about the decline of Western civilization. Let me read that to you again. I don't know who needs to hear this, but if someone says 2 + 2 = 5, the correct response is, what are your definitions and axioms? Not a rant about the decline of Western civilization. What do you even do with that? The answer to this is no, no, no. If you have a set of definitions and axioms that make any kind of sense where 2 + 2 = 5, it is on you to present them. 2 + 2 = 4. 2, the number 2, represents 1, 2, like in fingers, 2 fingers. 2 plus another 2 is 4 fingers. That is the meaning, the literal meaning of 2 + 2 = 5. Now, it's true that in certain mathematical contexts, 2 + 2 might equal something else. Like in group theory, 2 groups plus 2 groups might equal 1 group if they all merge together. But that's not 2 + 2 = 5. That's 2 groups plus 2 groups equals 1 group in group theory. There are other forms of math. There are other contexts of math. There are other axioms and definitions in which 2 + 2 might not equal 4, but it's not 2 + 2. The burden is on you who make the claim that 2 + 2 = 5 to present the reasons for it. And to the extent that you are teaching children that 2 + 2 = 5, then that is the decline of Western civilization. That is exactly the decline of Western civilization. I mean, there are 2 vectors. You could say 2 vectors of particular magnitude, and another 2 vectors equal something other than 4. But again, that is a completely different context. And it's your responsibility as an educator, as a mathematician, as an explainer, to set the context. But 2 plus 2 equals 4 is always and everywhere the right answer, unless you have set a different context. And again, if you're teaching children who are trying to grasp the very basics of arithmetic and the source of where numbers come from, numbers don't come from axioms and definitions. They come from observation of things and our need to count. Now, yes, there's axioms there as well. But if you create that kind of cognitive confusion among kids, where every time somebody says the number 2, they have to ask, oh, but what axioms are you using and what definitions? Then you are responsible for the death and decline of Western civilization, because you're teaching kids not to think. You're teaching things anti-thinking. You're teaching kids conceptual confusion. So if you, while writing a PhD, come up with a way in which one could understand 2 plus 2 is equaling something other than 4, great, good for you. I don't know what it's used for. Maybe there is a use for it. But the burden is always on you to explain why you are doing it, what the purpose is, and that you're not using 2 plus 2 in the sense of the way arithmetic uses them, the way reality, the way we learn it from reality. This is new math. This is complete rationalism, detached from reality. And this is indeed representative of the decline of Western civilization. Anyway, this has created a flurry of hundreds, maybe thousands of tweets back and forth. The tweet itself has 735 likes. There are, and 135 retweets, and a lot of comments, both pro and anti. So this is woke culture, I guess, where math is not math, arithmetic isn't arithmetic, reality isn't reality anymore. All right, let's see. We've got a couple of $20 questions, and we've got a couple of other questions. Let me take the $20 questions first. Let's see. Okay, put that aside. Okay, I'll start with the $20 one that relates to this particular question. Kareem is having a big Twitter battle with James Lindsay, one of the hoax postmodernist paper guys. Lindsay is good to follow. He is fighting a good fight against critical theory nonsense. Yes, I follow Lindsay. I haven't seen his specific fight with Kareem. I'd be interested in seeing that to see if he is actually making the right points that need to be made. But yes, I follow Lindsay on Twitter. He's very good at revealing kind of the whole critical theory stuff for the nonsense that it really is. Aside from your excellent course on investing, what text resources would you recommend on valuation? I mean, I've said that I will devote a show to that when I get to California. I've got all my books there. I'll pull out the books, I'll put out the resources and get it to you. One that comes to mind right now, I don't agree with everything in the book, but it'll give you a good beginner's kind of guide to, I think, the what's involved in investing. Don't take it as a Bible in any sense, right? It's a random walk down Wall Street. There's a lot of problems with it, but there's also a lot of value in it, and you could get a lot of value out of the book. Random Walk Down Wall Street. All right. We have to get you on the Joe Rogan. Anything in the works yet? Also, will Atlas Shrugged miniseries ever happen? I don't know about Atlas Shrugged miniseries ever happening. It might. Ever is a very long time. Probably will happen one day. Whether I'll be still alive to see it, I don't know. Whether you'll be still alive to see it, I don't know. Don't know how old you are. Nothing in the works about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has to decide, or somebody at Joe Rogan's show, or producer, or whatever, has to decide they want me on, and I'll be on. It's more of a question of them making the call. They know who I am. Joe Rogan follows me on Twitter. I don't think he follows a lot of people, but he follows me on Twitter. I've been recommended to him. From what I understand, he wants to avoid objectivists, but I don't think bugging him about it helps. But we will see. He obviously wants to live in a world of 1984. He should go to North Korea. I don't think even in North Korea 2 + 2 = 5. I heard a discussion, well, unless the brutal dictator of North Korea says it is, and then it is. I heard a discussion online that contradicts the construction for buildings should be regulated to prevent shortcuts to increase likelihood of safety. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, this is typical, right? We need regulations for safety. I mean, there were very few regulations when the Empire State Building was built. It's still standing. Indeed, very few regulations in the 19th century and in the early 20th century, and a lot of buildings that are still standing and have done very, very well in earthquakes and other things. So, no, I don't think you need it. And the reason is that there are very, very many players in the real estate market that have an incentive to make the building safe. Well, the builder has, because if it does collapse, you'll get sued. The people who are going to occupy the building have an incentive to demand from the builder some kind of certificate from an independent agency that this building is safe. Otherwise, why would they buy homes in it or businesses in it? Why would they rent space in it? The insurance company that insures the renters, the homeowners, the business owners, the construction, the building generally, has a strong incentive that the building is built safely and well, and therefore would send inspectors and supervise. So there is a lot of people in the supply chain, in the business chain, that have a self-interested incentive to make sure that the building is built well. Buildings that are built poorly will not be able to sell their space, will not be able to rent their space. And therefore, there will be a strong disincentive to build such buildings. Capitalism works on these things. And of course, if somebody builds a really bad building in a negligent way, in a sense that actually risks people's lives, and in a sense that deceives the occupants, oh no, the building's safe, but it turns out not to be, then they're probably criminally liable for fraud. And for the consequence of the fraud, which could be death if the building collapses. So we have in our laws, with the liability system, with criminal liability, and with just the way the market works and the way the market regulates itself, so many provisions to prevent that I don't worry, and indeed I think buildings will be safer. Because I trust the self-interest of insurance companies, of builders, of renters, and of buyers, more than I trust a random government inspector. Not to mention that it is random government inspection that mitigates innovation in building, mitigates innovation in construction. Buildings would be a lot safer if there was a real market for safety. And that market could be created by insurance companies. And people would innovate around safety. But if you go to regulators today, if you go to a building, your local building supervisor, and you say you want to build this interesting, innovative building, he won't let you, even if it's safer, because he won't understand that it's safer. How will you prove to him that it's safer? The famous example is Frank Lloyd Wright built this tall building in, I think it was Wisconsin or Minnesota, somewhere. It was the Johnson Building. You can find it online, the Johnson Building. And it had these completely new, bizarre columns. The columns were very, very narrow. They were round, very, very small diameter at the bottom. And they went up very narrowly. They slowly grew. And at the top, they became very wide at the top. And the ceiling sat on these. And these were very tall columns. And the building supervisor said, those won't stand. By the way, Frank Lloyd Wright didn't have a degree. He never graduated from college. He wasn't a licensed architect because he didn't graduate from architecture school. And he wasn't a licensed engineer, even though he went to engineering school for 1 year. And yet he was a massive innovator in the realm of building, even though he had never got licensed by the state. Anyway, Frank Lloyd Wright says, no, these columns, they're new. Nobody's ever built them before, but they're stronger than anything else you've seen. And the government inspector says, there's no way, and I'm not letting you build this. So Frank Lloyd Wright said, okay, can we do a demonstration? We'll stand up, and you can see photos of this. There are actually photos of this. We'll stand one up in the outdoors, and we'll load them up with sacks of sand. And you tell me how many sacks of sand this column has to withstand for you to approve it. And they put this column out, and they loaded the sack of sand, and they loaded, and they loaded, and they loaded, and the column never fell. And the inspector said, oh, okay, so build it, right? Now, that was a relatively rational inspector who was willing to be proven wrong by reality. Today, you wouldn't find a building inspector that connected to actual reality. So, no, I think the market is a much better place for all of that. All right, let's see. There is a lot of discussion among blockchain enthusiasts about DeFi, which is short for decentralized finance, using Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies. Have you any knowledge of what DeFi is all about? Well, not really, but I have a kind of a sense of what it's all about. And I think it's great. I think the blockchain is great at securely enabling financial transactions. Ethereum or other cryptocurrencies could be real powerful means to enable that. I just don't think they're money. I think they're powerful technologies that can be used for really cool stuff. It just don't confuse them with money. They might be money substitutes to some extent, but they're primarily tools for increasing efficiency, privacy, and security, and ways to make financial transactions more efficient. So that is my understanding. I'm sure I'm not getting to the depth of it, what it is. But I'm a huge fan of the blockchain and a huge fan of crypto. I just don't think it's money. That's all. Hey, Yaron, could you pay down the debt by just cutting spending? Would it be acceptable to maintain taxation until the debt is paid down? Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it could. And I think the priority for a rational government is to start dramatically cutting spending. But you can't cut spending that much unless you default on your responsibilities to Social Security and Medicare. And I'd rather default to my bonds than default on those responsibilities. So you have to phase those out over many years, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. So, and they consume a huge part of the budget. So yes, ultimately you can pay down the debt through economic growth, some limited taxation, and in that case I would have a flat, simple, postcard-like tax, none of the complexity of the tax system we have today. And I would cut spending, and that's how I would pay back the debt. But that would require a radical shift in the way we think about government, and I don't know any political party or any politician out there thinking in those terms, thinking in terms of paying back the debt. I don't know anybody who thinks in those terms. You'd have to have massive economic growth, which you could do by deregulating massively, simplify the tax code, and then cut spending dramatically. I mean, dramatically. And then it certainly is workable. All right, last question. Do you think Elon Musk and Bill Gates are lovers? Elon tweeted about this a few days ago. No, I don't. I mean, I think Elon Musk, I don't know if Elon Musk is gay. I don't think so. I think he's got a girlfriend, and I'm pretty sure Bill Gates is not. So, no, I think Elon Musk is playing with you. Why anybody would care, I don't know, but no. All right, thanks everybody. Some reminders. Before you leave, don't forget to like the show. Really, really important. Helps with the algorithms, helps with everything. Makes the show pop up with the algorithm, the more likes it has. And generally, the more engagement it has. So comments, even dislikes, whatever. Engage with the show. Certainly, sharing is the most valuable thing you can do with the shows. Appreciate the support we got today on Super Chat. There was a lot of enthusiasm around buying me shoes. You never know what'll take off as a fundraising tactic. But of course, the preferred mechanism by which you can support the show and where that provides me with the most value is if you go to Patreon, Subscribestar, or yaronbrookshow.com/support and make a monthly contribution, because then I know exactly what's coming and what to anticipate and know kind of what the monthly kind of revenue is going to be. I really appreciate it. We have, I think, including the Super Chat people, we have probably slightly over 500 people who probably, somewhere close, around 500 people who support the show. I'd love to get to 1,000. That would be the goal. We've got 20,000 subscribers. You'd think 1,000 of them would be interested in financially supporting the show, value for value, expressing the trader principle. So I'm hoping to get to 1,000 by the end of sometime. I don't want to set unrealistic goals, but let's grow this to 600-700 by the end of the year. How about that? Let's go to 600-700. So if you're not a supporter of the show, please, would appreciate it, even at $2 a month. yaronbrookshow.com/support, or you can go over to Patreon or Subscribestar and use them. Right? Peter Schiff writes, he's on the chat right now. He writes, I met Elon Musk last year in Dorado. Oh, May Musk. So Elon Musk's girlfriend, she was on vacation. Very nice, lovely lady. Yeah, so no reason to think otherwise. Thanks, Peter, for being on the chat. If we'd advertised that you were on the chat, we would have a lot more people listening right now. Oh, it's his mother. Sorry. May Musk is his mother, so we still don't know the answer. All right. I'm curious if Peter knows Elon Musk. That would be cool. Peter lives in Puerto Rico. Since you mentioned on the chat, I'll say it, in Dorado, a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood, a little west from where I live in San Juan. It's got, a beautiful golf course. It's got beautiful beaches, and it's got one of the best hotels, maybe in the world, the Ritz-Carlton Dorado. And it is truly beautiful, and I think a lot of celebrities probably vacation at the Ritz-Carlton in Dorado because it's truly a magnificent resort, and so you can meet a lot of famous people there. All right, Peter. Peter's in. He's not in Puerto Rico right now, so I won't say where you are because that's. I don't know that that's public information. But Peter, when you're in Puerto Rico, let's get together. It would be fun to actually do a show together in person where we're both in the same studio and kind of going at each other. It would be fun in the same studio with two mics. So maybe we can pull that off sometime when both of us are in Puerto Rico this fall or later this year. That would be fun. So all right, everybody. Thanks, everybody. And Peter, I'm jealous of the fact that you were on Joe Rogan's show. That would be a highlight if I could get on that show. Thanks, everybody. I will see you Tuesday at 8 p.m. We're going to pretty much be on a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday schedule. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Peter says he's going to be back in November. I'll be back. I'm going to California for a month from mid-August to mid-September. California is more shut down than Puerto Rico right now, so I'm coming back to Puerto Rico. There's just stuff I need to do in California, but really, particularly the last, I'd say, couple of month and a half or so, Puerto Rico's been in better shape than most of the rest of the country. So I've enjoyed being here rather than being somewhere else. Let's do it. Let's do it when we're both there in person, and look forward to getting together in Dorado by the beach. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you.